Good morning, all. So today we'll be the topic that we'll be learning is topical agent. As you can see, it's applied. What is topical? On the surface of the skin. Okay, topical means external application. So we'll be talking about topical agents. So you can see all the bacteria and all because our skin is the area where maximum microorganisms try to thrive on it because you have got all your fats, oils, moisture, everything which is present, which is conducive for the growth of your microorganisms. So we require to protect our skin, external skin from the microorganisms, and these topical agents play an important role in protecting the skin. Okay, so let's go by the definition of topical anti-infective agents. They are applied cutaneous on or on the mucous surface before surgery and to treat minor cuts, abrasions and burns. So these are the topical agents. These are applied before surgery or to treat minor cuts, abrasions or burns. So topical agents are those substances which are applied on the body surface, as I said, including application on the body cavities that are open outside also. Okay. These are the compounds that act locally with skin or on the mucous membrane and mainly by mechanical or physical manner. The topical agent does not absorb directly into the circulation. That's the most important. They don't directly go into the circulations. These compounds have little pharmacological effect. They have got little pharmacological. They don't get into the system and do something hanky-panky. So the facts of these compounds are that they are applied when they are applied, they produce variety of effects like absorbent, astringent, diluent, emollient, and protective. Means they form a nice protective layer or soothing agents. Some of the compounds exhibit antimicrobial and astringent activity when they are applied topically, and some inorganic compounds are having topical local activity. So this is an brief of your topical agents. Now let's go into the different types. Okay, so they are broadly classified as protective and absorbent. Example: talc, silicon, polymers, titanium oxide, calamine lotion, zinc, which you all see, which you apply on the skin. Then antimicrobial agents like your hydrogen peroxide, so which has an antimicrobial properties which destroys the microorganisms on the surface of the skin, like potassium permanganate, sodium perborate, iodine preparations, chlorinated amine, sodium hypochlorite solution, boric acid, borax, silver compounds, mercury. There are the different examples of antimicrobial astringents like zinc chloride, zinc sulfate, aluminum sulfate, alum, which you use after your as an aftershave, aluminum subacetate solution, and some of the miscellaneous compounds. Okay, so let's go now into each. Now, what is the antimicrobial agent? It's a broad terminology describing the activity against microorganisms. Against the micro. Antimicrobial agents are chemical agents used to destroy or inhibit the growth of pathogenic microorganisms. They are either to destroy, so it covers a broad spectrum. It to destroy or inhibit the growth of pathogenic micro. They may normally ineffective in sporing state of, so they are ineffective in case of sporing state where they have got a covering cyst around the micron. So they are not as effective in case of cyst in your sporing state. Next is your sterilization. What is this sterilization? You use this term mostly. So what is this sterilization? It is freeing of an article, surface or medium. It's not our body. It's the surface or the medium by removing or killing all microorganisms, including the vegetative forms of bacteria, spores, fungi, and so it kills everything. So basically, where you use sterilization of the in hospitalization before somebody enters, if the patient enters into it, it has to be sterilized, fumigated. Okay, so that there are no microorganisms, anything which is there on or off the surface are destroyed during sterilization. You have got gas sterilization, you have got fumigation with formaldehyde solutions, sodium hypochlorite solutions. These are all various methods of sterilization. Now, what's the next is disinfection. So disinfection is destruction or inhibition of growth of all pathogenic organisms, micro, bacteria, fungi, everything, all non-living surface. So very important thing, they are only applied on non-living surface. You cannot apply disinfectant on our, you can't put Domex on our body. No, you can't do that. Okay. So if spores are also killed, they are included as in sterilization. So it's a part of sterilization process also, where it destructs or inhibits the growth of pathogens entirely. Now the antiseptics, that is what we apply on our skin. That is what we apply on this. These are the chemical substances which inhibit the growth of the growth or kill the micro on living surfaces such as skin, mucous membrane. See, till above it was mostly on non it was on non-living surfaces, where in case of antiseptic can be applied on the living surfaces like your skin and mucous membrane. What are now keratolytic agents? These are the drugs that remove outer layer of the skin, dead skin, which are there present on the skin. They are removed. Okay, after infection there are dead skin over there, so this keratolytic agents try to remove the dead skin from the surface. Now next comes your sanitizers, and I hope so you are using a lot of them nowadays. Okay, these are the substance or liquid designed to kill germs on skin or objects. Okay, on the skin or object. To sanitize means to clean something by removing the dirt or destroying the germs on it. For example, we use industrial grade sanitizers in restaurants, kitchens to keep our equipments free from germs. So it might be an alcohol based, water based, depending upon that, mostly alcohol based, either ethyl alcohol or a propyl alcohol based sanitizer. Okay. Then comes your germicides. Then comes your germicides. These germicides are group of drugs that are able to inhibit the growth, development, or leads to the death of the microorganism in the environment surrounding the patient or on the surface of the body. Okay, so it can sanitize the entire area around this thing, patient, or on the surface of the body. So these are germicides. So now let us go one by one. What is protective agents and absorbents? So what are these? Protectives and absorbents. So protectives are the agents that cover the skin or mucous membrane from possible. So they act as a barrier so that the microorganism or anything does not penetrate into the skin. They act as a barrier. They act as a barrier. So mechanism of actions are this. Some substances are of insoluble type, like you said, zinc oxide. They are all they just form a layer. If you make it, if you've seen zinc oxide paste and all, which is applied on the skin, so they are insoluble type, chemically inert. They act by forming a coat or a film on the skin. Thus, they form a coat on the skin surface. They absorb moisture and decrease mechanical friction or irritation, and also discourage bacterial growth. So they form a barrier. So they inhibit the friction that is on the body. So they act as a protective layer. Okay, dusting powder is in the state of a fine powder, fine division from adherent continuous film on an and exhibit a protective action. So what happens? You put a dusting powder. You have, if you have seen an example of cotrimazole dusting powder, which is an antifungal, which is mixed. Your cotrimazole is mixed with your dusting powder, which, so in case of fungal infection, they act as a protective as well as an absorbent. So they don't allow the fungal to growth to come again, and they have got an anti-infective property, which is your cotrimazole. So now absorbent. So what are the absorbents? What are absorbents? Some chemically inert substance that absorb dissolved or suspended particles or gases, toxin, etc. are known as absorbents. They try to absorb the suspended, anything, dust particle or any gases which are present on the surface of the skin, they absorb it. So what is the mechanism of action? What is the mechanism? Absorbents are mainly used internally to prevent the irritants and unwanted effects of mucous membrane. Okay, so they can act as in patches. Some inorganic chemical possess both protective as well as absorbent properties on topical applications. The protective action is generally nothing but the mechanical protection. They protect, they form a barrier, okay, which is given from the external environment by forming a thin film or a layer on the surface. Okay, this is how they act. Now astringents. So what are astringents? Alum, zinc sulfate, they act as an astringent. So astringents act locally. When applied, they cause protein precipitation which have a low cell permeability, so that the action is limited essentially to the cell surface and the intestine. So they cause protein precipitation. The action does not result in the death of the cell, only the permeability of the cell membrane decreases. So very important, they do not cause any harm, just they prevent the permeability to the cell membrane, so that nothing goes. So whenever they aftershave, when you just take an example of alum aftershave, so when there are cuts or abrasions after shaving, so that will cause, wherever there is cut, it will cause a protein precipitation, so that it forms a barrier. The cell death, wherever there is an open area, so there will be an protein precipitation at that particular area. So that will limit the action on the, only at that particular, where the skin is clear, there will be no, but only where there is cuts or abrasions, this will act, and this will prevent the penetration of the anything external body inside. So it forms a barrier. So this is how the astringents act. So now let's go for the mechanism of action. Broad, so like antimicrobial action of antimicrobial agents. So the specific terminology describe the exact mode of actions. Okay, antiseptics. So depending upon the mode of action, there will be antiseptic, disinfectant, as we germicide, bactericide. Okay, bactericide means they entirely destroy, and static means they prevent the growth. Okay, fungicide, virucide, etc. And bacteriostatics, that means the inorganic compound generally exhibits their antimicrobial action either by three of these mechanisms. So these are the three mechanisms through which your antimicrobial agents act. These are the three mechanisms why the antimicrobial agents act. First is oxidation, second is halogenation, and the third is protein binding or precipitation, as we have seen previously. So these are the three major mechanism of action through which these compounds act. Okay, oxidation, halogenation, and protein binding or protein precipitation. So these are the three basic mechanism of action of your antimicrobial agent. So what is oxidation mechanism? So compounds acting by this may belong to a class of peroxide, peracid, oxygen liberating compounds like permanganate, or oxo-halogen anions like your chlorine, chloramine, such type which gives an active molecule. Okay, active radical. So they act on proteins containing sulfhydryl groups. So SH containing proteins, they will act. So they oxidize and free the sulfide to disulfide and inactivate its function. So they oxidize it to a disulfide linkage. Okay, to a disulfide link. I'll be showing the diagrammatic representations, so that will be easy for you. So let us. Next is halogenation. So what happens in halogenation mechanism? Compounds liberate chlorine or hypochlorite or iodine, and act by this mechanism. So the free chlorine, hypochlorite or iodine is liberated. This category of agent act on the peptide linkage and alter its potential. So they act on the peptide linkage which are present in your amino acid, which are on the surface. So our skin contains many of your amino acids. So they act on the peptide linkage. The destruction of specific functions of results in death of the microbe. So they act on the proteins which are present, which are necessary for your microorganism, okay, and cause the death. Now, what is protein precipitation? Many metals in their cationic form exhibit protein binding or protein precipitation. They precipitate the protein. Means, what do you mean by precipitation of protein? The protein comes out from its solution. They come out from the solution. The nature of interaction with the protein occurs through polar groups of the protein, which acts as a ligand, and a metal ion which acts as a Lewis acid. So the proteins will contain many, the SH group, OH groups and all. So what happens? They act as an ligand. So, and the metal ions, they get bound to it through coordinate complex. So they act as a source of an electron through which the metal acts, and they destabilize the structural of. So when this complex form, this is called as chelation. So when this complex is formed, when the metal forms a complex with your protein through its at its site, so this leads to an inactivation of that protein. When this complex is formed between the protein and the metal ions, okay, or an Lewis acid, this will, so a chelate is formed, and this leads to inactivation of that particular protein. This action is in general is non-specific. Protein precipitation does not distinguish between proteins of the microorganism and the host, so it can affect on both. So if you can see, when you are applying astringent on your face, so your face also gets this thing affected, okay. The germicidal action results when the concentration ion is such that the reaction is largely to the parasitic. So when the germicidal action occurs, when the concentration of ion is such that the reaction is restricted largely to the, so if it is a parasite specific reaction, then it is known as germicidal effect. Now let's see the diagrammatic. So what is the first thing we said? Oxidation. Oxidation. Next step is, first, what is the first mechanism I said? So what did we say? It acts on the sulfides, okay, bond which is present in the, so what does it do? So the free sulfides which are normal, which are present, so they oxidize it. So when they oxidize it, your hydrogen is released, and this hydrolyzed will react sulfide bond will form the disulfide linkage, and when this disulfide linkage is formed, this will destroy the protein structure, and the compound becomes inactivated. The compound becomes inactive. So this is oxidation and halogenation. Let's discuss oxidation. As I explained, so there are sulfhydryl groups which are present in our proteins, like methionine and all amino acid, which contains your sulfhydryl groups. So this sulfhydryl groups gets oxidized, and once they get oxidized, it conforms a sulfide, this thing, disulfide linkage. So if there is another sulfur which is adjacent, they will form a disulfide linkage in the protein. So once this disulfide linkage is formed in the proteins, they will destroy the protein activity. So it will destroy the conformation of your protein, and your protein gets affected. So this is your oxidation method. Now let's go for halogenation. So what happens in halogenation? So there is a normal peptide linkage where you can see there is a NH. So this NH of your amide gets replaced by your halogen atom. So this changes the protein amide linkage by addition of your halogen. So this changes the conformation of your protein, and once the conformation of the protein is changed, it's the activity related to that particular protein is completely lost, and so that's why it destroys the amino acids, this thing, protein structure. So that is your second, halogenation. So what happens in case of amide bond, your protein halogen gets replaced by your hydrogen. So this destroys the protein structure. Now the next is your precipitation. What did we say in precipitation? It is the example of your astringent effect. So this metal ions, if you see the sulfhydryl group SH, and if there is an amino group containing, so if there are polar example of polar amino acids which contains an lone pair of electrons present, so this lone pair of electrons will form a chelate chelation complex, protein metal complex. So once this protein metal complex, it inactivates the particular proteins. So that will be ineffective. This is the third mechanism how the, so you have to remember. So if you remember these diagrams, you will know how exactly the drug acts. How exactly the drug acts. So chelation means you know what happens. So the the polar compounds, amino acid which will be present on the they get chelated by the metal ions which is present in your antimicrobial or agents. So they will chelate the proteins and may inactivates the particular. So this is how the protein precipitation occurs in case of astringent. So that the skins, if you see what is protein precipitation, the skin is made up of what? Lipoproteins, okay, which contains lipids and proteins, and the proteins are made up of what? Disulfide is made up of peptides, amino acid bonds present in the amino. So if you see, there is sulfur, oxygen, OH groups, and amino. This all contains an free lone pair of electrons which can form chelate. So when they orient in such a way that when two such groups come close to each other, the metal forms a complex, chelation complex with that particular groups which are present in a amino acids, and this will inactivate that particular protein. So this is the mechanisms of action, representative mechanism of action of your astringents and your antimicrobial 3. So this is very important from your examination point of view. So it is an representation of your how the drug exactly acts, how the mechanism of action occurs. Okay. So as we said, now let's go for each and every class of drug with their examples. So as I said, what is keratolytic agents? These are the drugs that remove the outer layer of the skin, that is stratum corneum. Examples are sulfur, resorcinol, salicylic acid, pumice, aluminum oxide. So these are the examples of keratolysis. So they remove the dead skins from your skin surface. So mechanism of action, they are used act in combination with synergistic effect of other drugs which are present along with in the particular preparation. So mechanism, what does it do? It removes the surface oil, causing the drying and peeling of the surface skin. So what it removes all the oil from your skin surface, causing it to dry and peeling of the skin. So it removes the dead skin. So whatever infected skin can be removed, and thus causes the suppression of spread of skin disease. So what happens when the skin is dead? There is no source of energy for the microorganism. When the outer layer is destroyed, there is no supply of food for the microorganisms because it is dried, so they do not get the required nutrient. So that's how this keratolytic agents act. Now antiseptic agent, they oppose sepsis, putrefaction of the exposed skin by inhibition of and multiplication and metabolic activity or by killing of microbes. So they just prevent and multiplication of your. So typical examples of this types of compounds are antiseptic agents are, they're applied all over the body. They can be used for mouthwashes, soaps, and nasal. They act by causing the denaturation of protein and acts on the enzymes in the pathway. They cause denaturation of protein. So they will destroy they basically contain your metals or any other things that or which causes oxidation and destroys the protein structure, that is protein denaturation. This is how antiseptic agents act. So let us categorize the antimicrobial agents. Let us categorize the antimicrobial according to their mechanism of action. So oxidation mechanism, which all compounds act? Hydrogen peroxide, potassium permanganate, sodium per. This all can come for 2 marks. Give an example for oxidizing agent used as an antimicrobial agent. So 2 marks question, you can expect this type of things. So that's why we have kept this particular slide. Halogenation mechanism, iodine and its official like povidone iodine solution, potassium iodine, calcium oxychloride solution. Precipitation, protein precipitation compounds are boric acid, borax, silver and mercuric oxide, antimony, sodium tartrate and antimony ammoniated mercury. So these are the examples of the compounds agents according to the mechanism of action. According to the mechanism of action. So what are disinfectants now? As we explained earlier, disinfectants are bactericidal, means what? They kill the bacteria and cause irreversible lethal effect. Once they are killed, you cannot retrieve it. So they are completely destroy. They are non-selective and destroy non-pathogens, means they act on the microorganisms as well as our body cells, on the human beings and animals. So they are non-selective. They are applied on inanimate objects. You cannot apply disinfectant on the skin. What happens if you pour this thing, uh, Domex on your skin? You will get irritation. So you cannot apply this disinfectants on the skin. They are usually used on dishes, bedpan. These undergo deterioration on storage and elevated time. So they are highly corrosive. They are highly corrosive. Powerful are also toxic irritant, and example bleaching powder, which you use for cleaning of your wall surfaces, formalin, formaldehyde gases. They are highly corrosive. They are only used for disinfecting the inanimate object. You cannot use it on our self. So this, you have to be very careful when you are using disinfectants. So they can be only applied on a non-living object. Okay. Germicidal. As I said, these are the group of compounds that are able to inhibit the growth, development, and leads to that of the microorganism in the environment surrounding the patient on the surface. So what is the so they are concentration dependent, and they depend on the local pH and temperature. So the germicidal property depends upon the concentration of the drug, the pH of the surface of application, and the temperature, and they are determined by a coefficient known as phenol coefficient. It is the dilution of the chemical agent which causes an anti divided by the dilution of the phenol. At what dilution it shows an activity, divided by the concentration of phenol, which shows minimum inhibitory concentration. So the minimum effective concentration of both against the bacteria is considered. So to have a good germicidal property, the compound should have an phenol coefficient more than 1. Then only it will have a germicidal property. So remember, phenol coefficient is nothing but the another form is minimum concentration of the agent divided by the minimum effective concentration of phenol. So this ratio, when we try to take, it should be more than 1. Then only that compound will show a germicidal property. They mostly act by oxidation of protein, alkylation, or dehydration of the proteins. They will remove the water from, if there is any this thing, they will remove the water. So this is how the protein precipitation by oxidation, alkylation, or dehydration process. This is the mechanism of action of germicidal. Now I just want to say the classification. Remember this classification of your topical agents. Which are the compounds which are used as a chemical class? This is the chemical classification of antimicrobial topical agents. So examples are alcohols, phenols, 8-hydroxyquinone aldehydes, acids, halogen containing compounds, furan derivatives, oxidizing agents, heavy metal, cationic surfactants, dyes, and miscellaneous agents like bicarbonate. Okay, so these are the class. There are 12 classes of drug. First is alcohol, second is phenol, third is 8-hydroxyquinolines, fourth is aldehydes, then your acids, halogen containing compounds like chlorinated, hydrogenated, iodophores and fluorophores, furan derivatives, that's nitrofuran, and oxidizing agents like your hydrogen peroxide, KMnF4, heavy metals like silver, zinc, cationic surfactants, dyes, methylene blue, malachite green, such type of agents are used. So this is the chemical classification of your local anti-infective agents. Okay, now let's go for the first class. The first class of drugs are alcohols. The first class of drugs are alcohol. Okay, so alcohols. So nowadays, if you see in Corona, they say that alcohols are good antiseptics. Okay, they are good antiseptics and disinfectants. Okay, they are used for dressing of wounds. So if there is a cut on wound, they will apply alcohol, spirit. You know, spirit. It's nothing but rectified around 95% alcohol. Okay. So what was it seen that when they they found that branching an additional OH decreases the protein. So as you try to get a branched alcohol, the activity decreases. Some of the examples are ethyl alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, and benzyl alcohol. They are used as antiseptics. They are bacteriostatic agent. They are bacteriostatic agent, and benzyl alcohol is basically used as bacteriostatic agent in parenteral preparations. So if you want any parenteral preparation, you can add benzyl alcohol. Though, and their mechanism of action, antibacterial activity, is because they by the denaturation of the protein and also inhibit the phosphorylation system. They can inactive, they are inactive against spores, so they cannot act on your spores. They act as a cleansers or rubeficient. What do you mean by rubeficient? Means they increase your blood supply to that particular age. And the cleanser means they remove the microorganisms. They remove the microorganisms because of their liquid nature. They act as a cleanser. Example is isopropyl alcohol, ethyl alcohol, and benzyl alcohol. These are the examples of your alcohols which are used as a local anti-infective. Next is phenols. Phenols was first discovered by Lister in 1867. Yeah, first aseptic surgery was done using phenol. Just imagine they used phenols. You know, it's very corrosive. So the concentration in which we use, see the concentration, it acts as a bacteriostatic agent at a concentration of 0.5, and it acts as an bactericidal at the concentration of 1. So 0.5 ml in 100 ml gives you an bacteriostatic, and 0.1% gives you bacteria, and 1.5% can act as a fungicidal. Though used in less nowadays, they were used less in concentration in various gels. So various gels and ointments, they contain this phenols as an preservative as well as anti-infective. Because of their high permeability, it is used in fecal disinfection. So if there is an open defecation or all, this phenol can be used as a fecal disinfectant. So basically it is used mostly as an on inanimate organic objects. Okay, phenols. So let us have some of the examples of phenols. Let us have the examples of phenol and how there are different phenols and have they got different activities. So activities related to number of free hydroxyl groups and halogen. Okay, the activity depends upon what? The number of free hydroxyl group and your halogens and any other groups present at the para positions. Okay, so let us see. First example is hexyl resorcinol. These are used in what? Your lozenges, strepsils, mouthwashes. Okay, so hexyl resorcinol, what is the structure of hexyl resorcinol? It contains resorcinol. Resorcinol is nothing but 1,3-dihydroxybenzene, and which contains an hexyl group at the 1, 2, 3, 4th position. It contains an hexyl group. So that is your hexyl resorcinol. Next sentence is 4-chlorophenol. And other examples of phenol derivatives are parabens. So these are nothing but parahydroxyphenyl ester, paraphenolic esters, which contains an ester group at the para position of your OH. So methyl parabens means it is a methyl ester, propyl paraben is a propyl ester, and ethyl paraben is an ethyl ester. They are basically used as preservatives. If you see all of your preparations, it is used as a preservative in. And the germicidal activity depends upon the ability to denature the bacterial protein. And at high concentration, they cause cell. The other example of phenols are thymol. So thymol contains an phenol with an isopropyl at the second position and an methyl group at the 5th position. And bisphenol, that is hexachlorophene. This is used in many of your hand washes, which contains. This is used in many of the hand. So it contains an phenol with a 3 4, 6 trichlorophenol, which is linked to another 3, 4, 5 by an methylene group at the second position. So this is an example of your phenols, which are used as antiseptics, mouthwashes, lozenges, preservatives, and anthelmintic agents. So it has got a wide group of activity. So next example is 8-hydroxyquinolones. Next example is 8-hydroxyquinolones. 8-hydroxyquinolones. They act as antibacterial agent, antifungal, anti-amoebic. So in case of amoebiasis also they act by chelation. So chelation means protein precipitation. So they form a chelate with, they form a, they trap all the metal ions or which are necessary, like copper, iron, which are necessary for your microorganism for their oxidative process. So they will trap this required iron, metals like iron, copper, which is necessary into the for the bacterial cell by chelation, and thus interfering with the bacterial enzyme function. So this will call enzyme inactivation. So example are 8-hydroxyquinoline and chlorhexidine. Chlorhexidine is nothing but you get an chloro at the 5th and the 7th position, you get a chloro of your quinoline. Okay, this is your examples of 8-hydroxyquinolines. Okay, now aldehydes. Aldehydes are bactericidal, sporocidal, and virucidal. So it has got a very strong antibacterial, antimicrobial activity. The mechanism of action of these compounds are denaturation of protein by replacement of labile H in the amino carboxyl and hydroxyl group or thiol group of your amino acids. So they replace your labile H. So they cause your deformation in your protein. Examples are formaldehyde, which acts as an germicidal, which is basically used in a vapor form in a concentration of 1:10. They are used only for surface sterilization. So if you go in an hospital, they say we have to fumigate your room. Fumigation is nothing but using of formaldehyde solution spray. They will spray that solution and disinfect the room. Other class of drug is glutaraldehyde. Glutaraldehyde, you can see how much there are 2 aldehyde groups at the terminal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it is a 5-carbon group containing an aldehydes at the terminal portion. So if you can see 1, 2, you draw 2 hills over there, and at the terminal carbons there will be 2 carbonyl groups. So this is an example of glutaraldehyde. They are effective against all microbes. They are broad spectrum activity. They are antimicrobial and sporicidal. They are used to sterilize equipment and surgical instruments. So surgical instrument sterilization is done using glutaraldehyde. They are used for surface contaminated with. They are also used for sterilizing. It is basically used as a sterilizing agent. So they are used for sanitizing sterilizing the surfaces contaminated with hepatitis virus. So it's one of the most virucidal agent, glutaraldehyde. Okay. So next comes your acids. Next comes your acids. These are acids and their esters and used as an antiseptic, fungicidal, or spermatocidal. Okay. So these are acids or their corresponding esters. The commonest example is benzoic acid and its derivative. They are used as a preservative at a concentration of 0.1%. Acetic acid is an bactericidal agent. So if we can see, it acts as a preservative. Vinegar. So it contains acetic acid. So that is used as a preservative in your preparations. Any edible preparation, you will add little bit of acetic acid into that to preserve it. Sodium salt of mandelic acid is used as an UTI agent, in case of uterine infection, UTI infection, urinary tract infection. Boric acid, lactic acid, propionic have anti microbial. So these are the examples. So if you see methylparaben, methylparaben is an methyl ester of your 4-hydroxyphenol, and ethylparaben is an example of 4-hydroxy ethyl ester of 4-hydroxy benzoic acid. Okay, and mandelic acid, if you see, mandelic is nothing but phenyl acetic acid, which contains phenyl acetic acid, which contains an hydroxyl group at the alpha carbon. So that is mandelic acid. That is mandelic acid. So next is your halogen containing compounds. They are, which are the basically these things are used. They are nothing but chlorine, iodine compounds, and their complexes with organic compounds like chlorophores. These are not chlorophores and iodophores. These are the chlorophores and iodophores are nothing. These are the compounds which release chlorine and iodine when they come in contact with any surface or a substance. The mechanism of action is they oxidize the sulfadyl group and affecting the protein structure and function. So elemental chlorine and chlorophore are germicidal, having broad spectrum activity. They have got broad spectrum activity. Nowadays, if you see, most of them use your chloramine or sodium hypochlorite solution for disinfecting the. If you go to any dental doctor, they will disinfect in their chairs and all with this particular solution, so that whatever microorganisms, virucides, fungicides, anything is there, they get disinfected, they get sterilized. Chlorophyll act as a deposit, as I said, deposit that slowly releases your free chlorine. They are bacteria due to the ease of formation of hypochlorous acid. So what happens is chlorine then reacts with water to give your hypochlorous acid, which acts as an bactericidal or virucidal agent. Examples are chlorinated ClO2, oxychlorosin. So if it contains an C14H29 and an sodium sulfonate group with an hypochlorous acid. Okay, this is the example of pure oxychlorosin, which is as an chlorinating agent. And chloramine. See, these are chloramine T. With chloramine T, dichloramine T, and halogen. These are the compounds which will liberate your active chlorine when they come in contact. They decompose in water to give your HOCl, that is hypochloric acid or free chlorine, which acts. That's why they are used for disinfection of your drinking water. They liberate active chlorine. So iodine compounds are, iodine is used as a lot in case of cuts, wounds. They have broad spectrum activity. They act by oxidizing the sulfur, as I explained. The formation of reversible complex with protein or bacteria. They form a complex with your proteins or bacterial and thus inactivating it. And also they act by adding across the double bond which are present in your microorganism. They are non-toxic, non-volatile. So iodine was very volatile, so they converted into an complex. So iodine was complexed with your povidone iodine, that is nothing but your ring, pyrrolidine ring, which is connected to an ethylene linker. Okay, which is connected to an ethylene linker, and which is a complex polymer, which is then complexed with your iodine. So this is non-staining, and it can be used as an ointment. So iodine povidone, which is nowadays like Betadine brand, which contains iodine povidone, which is used as a gargle as well as an ointment. So this is what I would like to take it till today. So this is what I'd like to complete the rest of the portion. Okay. So to start with, furan. So furan is nothing but an 5-membered ring, unsaturated ring containing an oxygen heteroatom in the ring. Okay. So this have bactericidal activity effective against both gram positive bacteria. Lacks fungistatic activity. Bactericidal activity is due to cessation of your cell division due to blockage of energy transfer pathway. So it will block the energy transfer pathway, basically by chelation. Then and also it inhibits the bacterial respiratory enzymes. It inhibits the bacterial respiratory enzyme and thus inhibits the metabolic process. So furans act as an bactericide. They are used in various ointments, powder creams for wounds and surgical dressings. So you got nitrofurazone, which is an which contains an furan ring. So at the second position, sorry, at the fifth position there is a nitro, and at the second position there is an oxime linkage, enamine, that is an enamine linkage, CH, C double bond N, that is an enamine link. So if it is an urea attached to it, it is known as furazone. If it is an OH, that is an oxime, then it is known as nephroxime. And if it is an cyclic amide, then it is known as furoxyletine. So these are the examples for furan derivatives. So the structure remains the same. Only thing changes is the substitution at the N terminal. Okay, that enamine terminal, the compounds are formed. So examples are nitrofurazone, nephroxime, and furoxyletine. Okay, these are the examples of the furan derivatives. Next are the oxidizing agent. These are basically used. Most of them are used. So they have germicidal activity and are used for the treatment of anaerobic microorganisms. So mechanism of action of oxidizing agent means they will oxidize the sulfidyl group of the bacterial enzyme and other vital groups, causing lysis of the cell membrane. So it destroys the cell membrane of the microorganism by oxidizing your sulfidyl groups or any other active group which are present in your amino acids. So example, benzoyl peroxide, hydrogen peroxide, carbamide peroxide. Okay, these are the examples of your oxidizing. There is KMnO4 also, potassium permanganate. They are also used as an antibacterial agent. Okay, so KMnO4, hydrogen peroxide, benzoyl peroxide, they are all used. Okay, they are used in case of acne vulgaris in the treatment of pimple and well as a cleanser, Now heavy metals. So like heavy metals like mercury, sulfur, zinc are used as a protective agents, adsorbent and as a protective. They act similarly by act on the sulfidyl group of your bacteria, causing the enzyme inactivation. They act on the sulfide and also they act by your protein precipitation for formation of chelate. Okay, so this is how these drugs act. They can oxidize the sulfide group or they can chelate the amino acids and thus inactivating the proteins. So examples of heavy metals are mercurals, that is mercury containing compounds, silver containing compounds, and your zinc containing compounds. So examples of mercurals are thiomersal and nitromersal. Okay, nitromersal. Sorry, it is nitromersal. Example of these things are and nitromersal. Okay, so these are bacteriostatic and fungistatic. So they inhibit the growth of your microorganisms. They inhibit the proliferation of microorganisms. They form a reversible bond with your sulfidyl groups. They form a reversible bond with the sulfidyl group. Example are nitromersal and thiomersal. It's thiomersal, nitromersal and thiomersal. Thiomersal. So these are the examples of your mercury containing compound. So in case of thiomersal, it is a benzene ring which contains it's a benzoic acid. At the ortho position, there is a sulfidyl group which is connected to an mercuric ethyl mercurate. Okay, it is connected to an ethyl mercurate. If you see the structure, it contains a basic benzoic acid ring, which at the ortho position there is a sulfide bond which is connected to your mercuric ethyl mercurate. Okay, so this is the structure of thiomersal. Nitromersal, see, it's a nitrobenzene, and it has got a four-membered oxygen and silver mercury containing ring which is attached fused with your benzene. It's a four-membered ring containing oxygen and mercury attached to your benzene. This is nitromersal. So this examples come in your exams. Next example is your silver containing compounds. They are highly germicidal. They are combined with various side chains of your amino acids like sulfide groups, carboxylic acids, phosphates, NH2 groups of the bacterial cell constituents, and they destroy the cell membranes, and also they also act on various enzymes present in the bacterial cells, microorganisms. So examples are silver nitrate, AgNO3, and silver sulfur diazine. So silver sulfur diazine is nothing but an sulfonamide containing an silver group. Then there are colloidal sulfur and all which are used in case of your as if you see Bernal contains colloidal sulfur which is in a nanoparticle form. Okay, silver nanoparticles which are used in the treatment of cuts and wounds and burns. So silver means nanoparticle silver, if you see, they have got a very good antibacterial property. Okay, they act by combining with the sulfhydryl group, carboxylic acid group, phosphate and amino groups of your bacterial cell constituents, and thus destabilize your microorganism. Next compound is your zinc compounds. So zinc compounds, they act as an astringent. So they act as they act as a protein precipitants. They act as an protein precipitants by forming a chelate with your amino acids. Forming a chelates with your amino acids. They are basically used. Examples are zinc sulfate, ZnSO4, zinc stearate. Zinc stearate is nothing but your zinc attached to your stearic acid. Stearic acid is an 18 carbon fatty acids. It's an 18 carbon fatty acids which is attached to zinc, that is Zn. Okay, and the last is zinc oxide. So if zinc oxide is a constituent of many of your topical agent, they act as a protective layer. Okay, they act as a protectant. Okay, absorbent as well as protectant. Okay, they are used in eye and skin infections. They are used in eye and skin infection. Zinc sulfate, zinc stearate, and zinc oxide. Now next comes your cationic surfactants. Next comes your cationics. Examples are benzalkonium chloride, also known as BZK, BKC, or BAC. They are nothing but alkyl. So let me see, it is nothing but a alkyl. They are nothing but an alkyl. Okay, dimethyl, it's an alkyl, dimethyl, benzyl, ammonium salt. Ammonium salt. Okay, they are nothing but an alkyl, dimethyl, benzyl, ammonium chloride, quaternary salt, or they are known as ADBC. It is nothing but your quaternary ammonium salts. They are nothing but your quaternary ammonium salts. They are nothing but your quaternary ammonium salts. They are effective against gram positive and gram negative bacteria. They do not kill spores. Mechanism of action is they act by reacting with the negatively charged phosphate group which are present on the phospholipid member. So they are positively charged. So they will act on the negatively charged phosphate groups which are present in your bacterial cell membrane. Okay, this disturbs your cell membrane, and this leads to increased permeability of the bacterial cell that can change the cell wall integrity. So it will destroy the cell wall. Example are benzalkonium chloride, which reduce infections in human, methyl benzthioneum chloride, used for topical as a dusting powder, and a rinse to prevent dermatitis. That is your skin infection. Okay. Now let's see the structure. So it contains an, if you see it, everything contains a dimethyl benzyl ammonium chloride, quaternary ammonium salt, alkyl bimethyl. So there is an alkyl chain. If you see a long chain, which is attached to your dimethyl benzyl quaternary ammonium salt. So in case of methyl, in case of benzyl benzothionium, your quaternary salt is linked to a diethoxy ether, which is connected to an phenylic ring containing a methyl at the ortho position and an substituted alkyl group at the para position, and a substituted alkyl group at the para position. So that is methyl benzthioneum chloride. Next example is cetyl pyridium chloride. Next example is a cetyl pyridium. It is nothing but an pyridine group. Here, in case instead of your alkyl dimethyl ammonium chloride quaternary salt, there is an pyridinium quaternary salt. There is an pyridinium quaternary. This pyridinium is connected to an cetyl chloride. It is connected to an cetyl side chain. That is a 16 carbon. That is a 16 carbon alkyl group. That is a 16 carbon alkyl group. So cetyl is nothing but an 16 carbon alkyl group. Next is your lauryl trimethyl ammonium chloride. So it is an, so in this case, in case of lauryl trimethyl ammonium chloride, it contains an trimethyl lauryl group, which is attached to your quaternary ammonium salt. It is a trimethyl, and the fourth one is your lauryl group, which is attached, which is an C12 carbon, which is an C12 carbon containing alkyl group. Other examples are benzalkonium. Benzalkonium is nothing but here also it is C16 cetyl alcohol, which is attached to your dimethyl benzyl ammonium chloride quaternary salts. Okay, that is an cetyl group which is attached to your dimethyl benzyl ammonium chloride. Okay, so these are the examples of your cationic surfactants. Next example are your dyes. Next examples are your, there are many types of dyes which are available here, which can be used as bacteriostatic as well as they got bactericidal effect. They act by enzyme inhibition and denaturation. They block some of the enzymes by interacting with the proteins, or they cause the denaturation of your protein by breaking the sulfide peptide linkage. Bacteria cannot survive due to the dysfunctioning of your important biological process. So since they attack on the various bacterial enzymes which are necessary for its growth, survival. So thus, if any of these enzymes gets dysfunctional, the body functioning of the microorganism is affected. Thus, these dyes are used. There are various use for topical diseases. Examples are methylene blue, malachite green, and gentian violet. So these are some of the examples of your dyes. So there is a malachite green. This is nothing but thiazine, means it is an fused ring, benzene ring, containing the middle ring contains an nitrogen and sulfur, and the terminal group contains an N-dimethyl group. Okay, so these are the structures of your various dyes: malachite green, gentian violet, acridine orange, acridine yellow. See, these are some of the dyes which are used in your as an topical anti-infective agents. And some of the miscellaneous drugs are chlorhexidine. It's chlorhexidine. So if you see chlorhexidine, it is used in various of your gargles. Your gargles contain your chlorhexidine, Chlorox. Many of the brands are there. So this contains this contains an basically a bigonadin. It is a bigonadin. So what is this bigonadin? This, if you can see, NHC double bond NH dash NH. If it is, there is a two types of gonadin linkage which is connected by an hexyl group, that is hexidine. Okay, so the structure, let us see the structure of your bigonadins. So what are bigonadins? I'll just explain to you what are bigonadins. Bigonadins are nothing but the compounds which contains, the basic is NH, C double bond, NH, N. So this is your basic gonadin. Since there are two such type of linkage, that's why it is called bigonadin. Okay, this is connected to an CH2 and by an hexyl group to another gonadin linkage. Okay, NH, C double bond NH. There is an NH. Okay. Then C N H, C double bond NH, and H, and this terminal NH is connected to an para-chlorobenzene. It's connected to an para-chlorobenzene. It's connected to an para-chlorobenzene. It's connected to an para-chlorobenzene. Okay. So these are the example of bigonad. These are the examples of iron, that is chlorhexidine. It is basically used in low concentration, causes precipitation of your cell membrane, which leads to the leakage of your cell constituents. They are used in concentration of 1% in mouthwashes, dental antiseptic, and at high concentration they act as an bactericidal. They are very strong. They are effective against both gram-negative and gram-positive bacteria. Okay. So, and they are inactive against the spores. So, this particular chart tells you how the drug acts, and with the example. So, first example was alcohol. The mechanism of action is protein precipitation. Next is your aldehydes. It also causes protein denaturation. Example, formaldehyde and glutaraldehyde. Cationic sulfide, they alter the cellular and denaturation of protein. Example, benzalkonium chloride. Halogens, they cause coagulation of protein and interferes with the enzyme. Okay. Examples, iodine, povidone, halozone. These are some of the chloral hydrates and all. Heavy metals, they cause denaturation of protein. They cause denaturation of proteins by inactivation of your sulfhydryl groups. Like nitromersal, nitrate, thiomersal. Examples. Organic dyes are denaturation of protein, enzyme inactivation. Examples are gentian violet, methylene blue, malachite green. Oxidizing agent, they act by oxidizing the sulfide SH group, that is sulfide group. Example, hydrogen peroxide, potassium permanganate, benzyl peroxide. And the phenolic compounds they are protein precipitation. They cause protein. Example, phenol, cresol, hexyl resorcinol. These are some of the examples of your phenolic compounds. Now, the classification of so these are the criteria. So, what are the antiseptics? They are the compounds that used to kill or prevent the growth of micro. So, and this is what is the criteria of an ideal antiseptic. So, what criteria should be there in an ideal? So, they should exert rapid and sustained lethal action against. So, there should be a rapid action and should be sustained throughout a long period of time. They should retain the activity in presence of a body first, including so if there is a pus, they should be effective. They should be non-irritating to the tissues. They should be non-allergic. They should lack systemic toxicity when applied on the skin or mucous membrane, and they should not interfere with during the healing process. So these are the criteria for an ideal antiseptic. These are the criteria for your ideal antiseptic. Now the second is disinfectant. So disinfectant, they act by destruction of the pathogenic when applied on an inanimate organ. So these are the ideal characteristics of an disinfectant. They should be rapid, lethal action against all potentially pathogenic microorganisms, spores, viruses, everything. They should have a good penetrating power into the organic matter. That is your microorganism layer. It should have compatible with organic compounds like soap. They should not have any side reaction. They should not be inactivated by living sheet. They should not be inactivated by living. They should be non-corrosive and aesthetically desirable. Like it should not be non-staining and odorless. There should not be any obnoxious odor, or it should not cause any stain. So these are the ideal properties of your disinfectants, and these are some of the differences between your antiseptics and disinfectants. So in case of disinfectants, their chemicals are used to kill microorganisms, whereas antiseptics are the ones which used to prevent the growth of micro and may even kill them. They are applied on a non-living objects where they are safe. The antiseptics are safe to be applied on your living tissues. They are used in drains, toilet, etc. But they are used on woods cuts on your human body. Example is phenol of your disinfectant. Example of antiseptic is your any alcohol based or your sophromycin antibiotic. So these are the differences between the disinfectants and your disinfectants and your antiseptics. Very important to be studied. Mark it as important.